We're talking about what's happening in the 731 on the Hub City Now with your host, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr.
Hello, and welcome to Hub City Now. I'm your host, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. And on today, we have with us history in West Tennessee. We have the first black mayor of Brownsville, and his name is William Bill Donald Rawls Jr. Thank you for being here today, Mayor Rawls.
Thank you for having me.
Mayor Rawls, your road to become mayor started off, as you've told me before, as a joke. Tell me that story.
Well, there were naysayers. There were people that believed that this would never happen in Brownsville, Tennessee, because of the racial disparities that have come past in the voting and the registration of voters and the rich civil rights history that's been in Brownsville, Tennessee. So people thought there would never be opportunity for an African-American mayor.
Right.
I actually came out of nowhere. I saw the need in our community for stronger leadership, and I knew that I could do a better job than what we had. Right. I knew our community deserved better leadership than what we had. Right. So I took it upon myself, accepted my assignment, stepped into my calling, and the rest is history.
Right. And back in, 1984, your friend Jeff Thomas,
yes,
and you were working on a NAACP project. Is that correct?
That's right. It's an oratorical contest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the joke that you told him?
My friend Jeff, who ended up being my campaign manager years later, said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I think I'll be the mayor. He said, it'll be a real cool place to live. So we laughed about it. Right. And God in his infinite wisdom allowed that opportunity to happen, years later.
Right.
Yeah.
And when exactly did that start taking form?
Really February of 2014. I picked up my petition during President's Day weekend, decided to put some feelers out and see what it would look like. The current mayor was running unopposed, and I felt like we deserved stronger leadership in Brownsville. I was born and raised in Brownsville, Tennessee. I remember the Brownsville that I grew up in. I was raised in a single-parent home.
Okay.
My mother passed at a very early age, and my father, along with the community, wrapped their arms around me. It does take a village.
Right.
And they nurtured me, they cared for me, and they directed me. I was able to matriculate at Morehouse College and come back home to Brownsville and later become the mayor.
And what did you study in Morehouse, and how do you think it shaped you to become ready to become mayor?
It just called for accountability. Being a Morehouse man means that you have to lead from the front. It means that you create jobs, not just take a job.
Right.
I studied banking and finance. Money makes the world go round. So I took a deeper dive into finances. And I was very interested and very happy about the education I received at Morehouse College, but also the calling to go back into your community and do more to lead our people.
Right. When you were running, somebody on Facebook named Chandra Turner said, "Good luck, BJ. I pray you win the election. President Barack Obama made history. Now it's your time to do the same." From what I saw on Facebook, you had so many people behind you. How did that feel? And how did that make you feel that you were called to become the mayor?
It was an awesome feeling. The empowerment of people saying, go for it. The number of people we took to the polls, the number of people that registered to vote, just like President Obama in his first run, people were motivated. They had hope, a sense of pride about what could happen in Brownsville. A lot of people had just given up on Brownsville, and I just felt like it was time to change directions.
And what were some of the things that they wanted changed?
Well, we had trash on our streets. The current administration had changed the pickup routes for debris that was placed by the side of the road, and our town was becoming dirty. The unemployment rate was through the roof, and there were no hopes of any current jobs coming to Brownsville. There was being a lot of money put into historical venues, but our hospital closed. Our hospital closed right before I got elected. No one saw that coming. And that was a wake-up call for our community. If you don't get involved, if you don't pay attention, if you don't have strong leadership, a lot of things you'll lose in your community.
Right. On July 9th, 2014, you were sworn in as the mayor of Brownsville.
Yes, I was.
There were two items that were with you during that time. One, and I'm just taking one at a time.
Okay.
One was a Bible tell me what was special about that Bible and who held that Bible before you.
The Bible belonged to my deceased brother, Todd Lewis Rawls. He passed in 1999. He was an attorney. He was my younger brother. He lost his life at 29 years of age, but he was always an outgoing person. As a matter of fact, he had live out loud on his tombstone because he traveled. He was a maritime. They studied maritime law in Greece.
Right.
Been to Paris, Brazil, and things of that nature. So his engraved Bible, my 14-year-old son Terry held the Bible as I took my oath on that day. And in my pocket, I had a 1921 silver dollar that it was passed from my grandfather to my father. And those are things that were precious to me, that shared the moment for me and connected me with my family.
Right. Let's see. You also, during that time, you said the coin reminds you daily of 3 generations of community service.
Yes.
That your family had provided. What kind of community service did they provide?
My family was in the film business and still are in the film business.
Okay.
And the film home has always been a site for black business in the African-American community, whether it was notarizing papers, cashing checks, helping utilities, but giving rides to the grocery store. All the older black gentlemen in the community always waited in the funeral home till their wives got through at the grocery store or at the beauty shop. And they'd call the funeral home phone and say, your wife's ready. But in the process, I got to really learn a lot from these older gentlemen about life experiences, about things that didn't make a lot of sense to me then, but make a lot of sense to me now. And people laugh at me because I have all those old sayings and those old jokes. And they, where do you come up with these? I grew up with them right there in the funeral home.
Right.
My family and my grandfather, my father went a lot further than just funeral service. They went into the grocery business. They opened up a black movie theater, a black drugstore, employed the first female African-American pharmacist in the state of Tennessee in 1955, 10 years before he was able to vote.
Right.
And those type of public service venues and type of atmosphere, I grew up in it. That's all I've known all my life is public service. But I'm the first in my family to hold a political office of this stature.
And was this your first political office?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm 2 years into my first term, first political office. I wasn't a city council member. I wasn't a county commissioner, not a school board member. I was just a person in the community that felt like I could make a difference.
Well, one more question before we go to break.
Sure.
What do you think your father and grandfather would say if they could see you today?
I think they would tell me they were proud of me. I think they would say, job well done. I stepped up. I basically put my neck on the line, put a target on my back, and put people first. It's all about people. See, this is much bigger than just me. It's about our community.
Right. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Elbert Williams Memorial service that happened last year and also what happened this year on June 20th. And we're going to talk more with Mayor Rawls when we come back after these messages.
In a world obsessed with throwing shade and putting others down, there's a college boldly committed to doing the exact opposite. A college that understands you are not defined by your yesterdays, where dreams are rekindled and hope restored. A place of new beginnings, transformation, and honor. Where a Christian liberal arts education is more than a piece of paper. It's where you start your story all over again. Start your story and discover the new Lane College.
Welcome back to Hub City Now. I'm your host, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., and today I have with me Mayor Bill Rawls from Brownsville, Tennessee, the first African-American mayor of Brownsville, Tennessee. One of the facts that I forgot to mention before we went to break was that it was 50 years to the month of the enacting of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that Mayor Rawls was I'm losing my words. Was sworn in as mayor of Brownsville. During that time back there, it had 50 years. I mean, that was history. 50 years. How does that make you feel that from that time up until now, a lot of things have changed?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that it will be almost to the day and out to the month that 50 years ago, people stood in line. People were ostracized, beaten, hosed down, attacked, threatened, burned out in Brownsville, Tennessee. Not just in Montgomery, Alabama, or in the places we see on television, but right in Brownsville, Tennessee, you had a strong civil rights movement where people simply wanted the right to vote.
Right. And one of those people was Elbert Williams, who was the first NAACP official murdered for attempting to restore voting rights to African Americans. Right. And what was his story?
Yeah, and that's funny because I was sworn in, elected in June. I was elected in June, sworn in July. Right. Of 74 years to the month that Elbert Williams was murdered, 1940. He was the first to organize the NAACP in Brownsville, Tennessee, along with the charter members. Okay. He was made an example of. He was pulled from his house by the sheriff, in the custody of the sheriff, and then he was later found pulled from the Hatchie River with a bullet hole in his chest. He was the inquiry was done on the banks of the river. He was ordered to immediate burial. As a matter of fact, my grandfather buried him. He lived down the street from my grandfather. Wow. He was a prominent citizen in the community, but he was made an example of. Right. Later, that case was investigated by the FBI, and Thurgood Marshall himself came to Brownsville, Tennessee, to investigate that case. Wow. To no avail. And that was an example. I don't care who you call or what you do. If you get out of line, you'll find yourself in the river. Right. And that suppressed voter rights for 74 years until I took my oath as office.
And that's amazing because there was a first before you. There was a first woman, and you were able to. You got 65% of the votes from that election. But back to Elbert Williams. Last year, Brownsville honored him. Yes, by installing a state historical marker.
Correct. And we did a huge event.
It was a very nice program.
Yes, the national president of NAACP, Cornell Brooks, came to Brownsville, Tennessee, right after the murders in South Carolina in the church. We had to do some logistics about getting him back and forth to the Today Show. Right. But he came, he spoke. Ed Stanton Jr., there were just a number of elected officials and public officials that came, along with the family members. We did a memorial for him to honor his death because it was so significant. It had just been lost in the archives of history. Right. And we resurrected that story and honored him. Finally, gave him a fitting memorial upon his death. On the date of his death in 1940.
And just recently, you said on June 20th of this year, you all had another moment where you all honored him. Yes. And how did you all do that?
This year, the Equal Justice Institute out of Montgomery, Alabama, has gone all over the country and gathered dirt from places where people were lynched. But in June of this year, they came to Brownsville, Tennessee. We gathered dirt from the place where Elbert Williams' body was pulled from the Hatchie River. We then encased it into a glass jar and made a memorial. We all took turns filling that jar. Okay. Each member of the community that was at that ceremony filled the jar along with their family members, and then we would then send it to the Equal Justice Institute in Montgomery, Alabama, for a memorial. Okay. Yeah.
How did that make you feel? Because you said your grandfather buried him. From that time where this man was working to restore voting rights to your time where you're now the first black mayor of Brownsville, in a place where 50 years ago, as you said, you could have been lynched or killed because you wanted the right to vote to make your community better. How does that make you feel to be able to honor somebody who lived back then at that time and paid the ultimate sacrifice?
That's an honor, and it's a privilege for me to serve in this capacity because I understand that the blood that was shed, the sacrifices that were made before me that made this possible for me. Right. Had that not happened, I would not be sitting here today as the mayor. Right. It makes the whole journey bigger than life. It makes it larger than me, and it makes me understand that this was a time. It was just I was the right person at the right time. I'm not such a special person, but what I'm doing is incredible. Right. Incredible.
While we're speaking about civil rights and movements, right now in this day and age, right here, right now, we see a movement where black people are gathering together to stand up for their rights. And in many ways, I've heard many people say this seems like 50 years ago.
It does.
Elaborate on that for me.
It seems like, though, we've turned back the hands of time. People have things have come to the surface that have been there all the time.
Right.
As Malcolm said, the chickens have come home to roost.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The issues that we didn't totally deal with in the 50s, in the 60s, have surfaced again right here. Racism still exists in this country.
Right.
There's not a level playing field for African Americans in this country. And people say, well, Black lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. But Black lives are in jeopardy.
Right.
Those are the ones that are in jeopardy. That's why you see the battle cry. And it's a movement. You have young African American men and women and people of all races have said this is not fair.
Right.
This is not right. We're losing too much blood on our city streets.
Exactly.
And the violence is just not right that unarmed citizens of this community are being murdered in the streets. And more so, not so much as it's happening, but the sweeping under the rug of the issues. Not prosecuting.
That is not happening every day, but it is happening. And,
right.
And the level of justice doesn't seem to be happening at all. I think back to, it seems like it kind of started with Trayvon Martin.
It did.
I mean, he was a young man who was walking home, had bought his grocery, had bought his candy, his juice, was walking home. They told Zimmerman, don't pursue him. Don't follow him.
Yeah.
And he followed him and he killed him.
Yes.
And there seemed to be no justice for that.
Yes.
And from there, it just seems like it just keeps building, from cops shooting people in the back and lying about it. But the cop, and I can't remember the exact case, but I remember that man was fired and he is facing murder. That police officer is facing, well, he's not a police officer anymore, but he is facing murder charges for that because he tried to cover it up.
Right.
When we look at these things, and you yourself have a son,
Yes.
an African American son, two
sons.
sons. What do you tell them when you see things like this?
That this is not acceptable. This is not fair. This is not right. This is not the way you're supposed to live your life in fear.
Right.
And we have fear from the police. We have police that fear citizens of this country. And once you get to know someone, you remove a lot of the fear. That's why I've had a strong emphasis on community policing in the city of Brownsville. And we'll talk more about that later. But, it's heartbreaking as a parent of a young African-American man to know that he could leave the house and his life could be in jeopardy if those are supposed to protect him. So, and then their lives in jeopardy of those who look like him. You know, the bloodshed is just not necessary. It's just in this day and age, with the advantages we have in the United States of America, there shouldn't be that level of violence and gun violence in our communities. It's just guns don't kill people. People kill people.
That's right.
But we put the guns in the wrong hands of people that are mentally disturbed, that are frustrated, that are emotional, that are not thinking clearly. Then you have some issues. That's how you have the level of gun violence we have.
That's right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more about the initiatives and goals that Mayor Rawls has for Brownsville and more about the Black Lives Matter movement. We'll be right back.
Depend on your tires. Let R&R Tire Express keep you on the road and safe with a complete set of new tires from the brands you trust, starting as low as $16 per week with our pay-as-you-go program. Choose easy payment options, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and at R&R, complete installation with lifetime rotating balance, flat repair, and 12 months 24-hour roadside assistance is absolutely free. Only at R&R Tire Express.
Welcome back to Hub City Now. I'm your host, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., and we're here again with Mayor Bill Rawls of Brownsville, Tennessee, the first African-American mayor of Brownsville. I was about to say president.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I wanted to go back to the Black Lives Matter movement and what you said about your, what you would say to your sons. How has it been for you to see these things replay on television and the protests? And do you remember back when people were marching when you were growing up?
I was born in 1966, so
Okay.
I came along right after all these things were going on. But reflecting back on it, it's amazing that after all these years, we find ourselves fighting for the same rights,
Right.
equal justice under the law. That all citizens are created equal.
Exactly.
And we all have the opportunity to have a quality of life in Brownsville and all over the world that every citizen deserves. So it's quite interesting.
What are some of the issues in Brownsville now that you're combating, that you are working towards solving?
I've created 3 initiatives that attack 3 different areas of our community that I see a need. Okay. The health disparities. Brownsville and Haywood County leads the state in obesity, teen pregnancy, and diabetes. Okay. So those are issues that are cause some of our citizens to go to an early grave. Right. And while the hospital there, we've had to kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. I've created a wellness initiative that has many wellness clinics. We go out into the community and we do testing for prostates, blood pressure screenings, and BMI. And we've been very successful with help from health clinics. Our SOS, Save Our Streets. It's an anti-violence campaign. But right before I came into office, we had a citizens review committee that's been put in place to police. We have a citizens police academy that allows people from the community to do ride-alongs with the police department, shoot on the shooting simulator, and have a better understanding about what the police do. Okay. We have a unity breakfast once a month. I gather with community leaders, mainly the faith-based community, but educators and our chief of police. We attend these unity breakfasts once a month, and we talk about the issues that come up in our community. And we open a police substation in an area of town that need it, and we increase patrols when necessary. We increase the Crime Stoppers. I believe in community policing, where I have the police. Every officer that I swear in, I require that they get out of their car and talk to people in the community.
And how has that been?
It's been awesome. Because
I know there are a lot of people in West Tennessee who live in different cities who say, the police just don't get out the car anymore. They drive by. Right. They don't say hi. Right. They remember a time where people used to get out the officers would get out the car, learn the people, especially the people in the businesses in the area, and they would be on a name basis with them.
Exactly. It has been awesome. We have a lot of young, aggressive, smart, well-trained officers. I don't believe in cowboys. If you're a cowboy, you can't serve on the Brownsville Police Department. Right. So we have good people that in the police department is diversified, but probably the most diversified department in the city of Brownsville. And I require community policing from every officer that I swear in. And it's been awesome. We have an outstanding chief, Chief Debo. He gets it. He's been in law enforcement for years, but he understands the community. He's reached out to the NAACP. He's reached out to gang members on an individual basis and said, look, this is my number. Call me before things get out of hand. And that's the kind of leadership we need in our police department. We're on our 2nd generation of body cameras. We've had them for years. Okay. Every officer has a taser. I just sent 3 officers for critical incidents training in Memphis, Tennessee, to deal with mental health issues for my community. So we have been very, very proactive. As a matter of fact, on June 25th, under our SOS initiative, we did a community march. We marched into the center of town and had a prayer service before all this stuff broke out. Right. And it was very diversified. We had members of the Jewish community, members of the Hispanic community, Church of Christ, Church of God in Christ, Baptist, Methodist, all Presbyterian, all in one place on one accord. You can't have a community without unity. Right. And that's been our cry for the SOS. And then, of course, we talked about the health initiative and workforce. If you don't increase the workforce, if you don't have an opportunity to have livable wages and a quality of life that people in Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee have, the citizens of West Tennessee deserve the same opportunities. So we see these high unemployment rates in West Tennessee. We're waiting on the Memphis Regional Mega Site to take place. I serve on the Mega Site Authority. I have an opportunity to serve with the Delta Leadership Institute, which I've been all over the Delta region, 8 states, 252 counties and parishes that represent the Delta region. It's a federal agency, but the leadership training I've gotten there and the people I've met have been incredible. So we look at health and wellness. We look at the SOS, which is our anti-violence campaign, and workforce development. We have soft skills training that we offer for free. We have to understand people. You have to look like you want a job, you have to talk like you want a job, and you have to pass the drug test. Right. And that's what I hear employers saying. Those are the issues. So we continue to do that. We've invested $1 million into our local industrial park. We have 400 acres of developable property. That's a Tennessee certified select site. We put industrial grade interest and put water pressure there for fire suppression. We did that through grants. So we're super excited.
You all sound like you all are way ahead of the game than anybody else in the nation.
I hope so. So we've been very proactive instead of being reactive.
Right.
We try to get ahead of the game. I've been blessed with vision. That's one of the talents that God gave me. And being in leadership, you should have vision.
Right.
Where there's no vision, the people will perish.
That's
yes.
right.
Yes.
Now, you talked a lot about what the city and the police and other organizations in the community have done. What can the people of Brownsville do to help make their community better?
That's what this has to come from the bottom up, not
Right.
from the top down.
Right.
People in the community need to know their neighbors. If somebody moves into your neighborhood and rents a house across the street is not doing what they're supposed to do, you need to call the police. You need to talk to them. We need to get ministers to come out of the pulpit
Right.
and come beyond the walls of the sanctuary and go into the community and say, we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior in our neighborhood.
And you mentioned that right now, and I read an article by a young African-American woman who said that she left the church because when things like the police shootings or things like that happened, the church was nowhere to be found. And that hurt her.
Yes.
That hurt her.
Yes.
And like you're saying, that's what Christians are supposed to be about.
Exactly.
The church is supposed to be about
Right.
helping.
Right. It's supposed to serve the unsaved.
Right.
The ones that are saved are supposed to go out into the community and make a difference.
Right.
I mean, it was a time when people respected the minister when he came down the street or sister so-and-so, you hit your beer can.
Right.
But now, it's just the level of respect that we have for our churches. And I think the churches have to be more active. It's hard to tell a young man to pull your pants up when you don't even know his name.
Right.
You don't know his situation.
Exactly.
Maybe he can afford a belt, or maybe he doesn't know any better. Has anybody taught him? See, the disparities in our children are not their fault. It's our fault.
Right.
They haven't been taught. They haven't been given an opportunity. So that's the results. We've lost a generation, maybe two, maybe working on three that have just gone. Those values aren't there. So we've created we didn't create, but we're inviting a program into the Brownsville, Tennessee school system called the Leader in Me.
Okay.
It's a character building program that was used in business. It's been used in schools with 100% success rate all over the country. And this fall, I've been really advocating for it. God has put this in my path more than once. The Leader in Me program will restore some of those values to our children in the school. I still believe that our teachers should be teaching our children, not disciplining our children. Right. And that gets to be an issue. So this Leader in Me program will put the accountability back on the children. They're responsible for their actions and things in the school. It is an awesome program. I hope I can come back and bring some kids with me in about a year.
I'll be happy to have you.
Yeah.
We thank you for being on the show today. This is Mayor Bill Rawls, history right here, the first African-American mayor of Brownsville. To learn more about Brownsville, Tennessee, and the mayor and the government, you can visit www.brownsvilletn.com. We really appreciate you tuning in to our show today. Our sponsors, we would like to thank our sponsors, Baskerville's Funeral Home, R&R Tires and Custom Wheels, Styles Menwear, and the city of Brownsville. We really appreciate you all tuning into our show, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.